intro. Stand by for full video immersion.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Triple Threat. I'm Tom Marutia, and this is Garrett Hicks.
Hello.
And this will be the second in our video reviews that we're doing. It's the summertime. We thought we'd try something different.
Yeah, as long as we're in the same place, might as well.
Exactly, and we're the only two that can really talk about what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, Becca wasn't terribly interested, and I don't blame her.
What we're going to talk about is The Who's Endless Wire album, released in 2006, which would make this the 10-year anniversary. Now, this is something that, obviously, as we said, we have never done. Some of us, Becca and Avery, haven't even heard this album.
Yeah.
You have more experience with this album than I do.
I have a lot of experience with this album.
So we're going to go through it like we do every album. We're going to go song by song, talk about, where it places in the Who's discography, does it hold up after 10 years? And what's also really unique is that I was doing some research. There's only really like one other review for this album on YouTube, so this is going to be... I didn't watch it, obviously.
So this is historic.
Yeah, exactly.
In a way.
So, let's just get right into it. The Who's Endless Wire, as I said, was released in 2006, their first album in 24 years, since 1982's It's Hard. First album without John Entwistle. Not the first recordings without John Entwistle. Yes. We'll get to that. This one was Roger and Pete, and mostly, was it their touring band that was behind them in the studio?
No, it was mainly Pete. He was doing most of the instruments on it. If you look in the booklet, it'll say, it had all of the musicians listed, because there are a few session musicians that sit in. And it has Roger doing vocals, Zach doing drums on these tracks, Simon and Townsend, and so on and so on. And the last name on the list is Pete Townsend with the credit Remainder.
Wow, everything else. So why don't we just get right into it, Garrett, since you have more history with this album. Why don't we get a little history on the making of the album, how it came to be, and all that stuff.
Okay. So most of the tracks on this album were recorded from about autumn 2002 to late, summer 2006.
So it was a 4-year album? I didn't even know this.
Sort of, yeah. Because you got various things that came together, various tracks that were mined for it. Because the first half of the album is kind of just, let's just get the songs that Pete wrote and put them together in a way that works best for The Who. And so after a specific concert, which I'm going to talk about later when we get to the right song, Pete decided, you know what, yeah, let's make an album. And they spent the next few weeks in the studio, mainly Pete recording all of his stuff, and I think Roger recorded all of his vocals in about a week.
For the entire album?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And it was released in November, and this is actually special to me, because this is the first Who album I actually bought. I had a compilation before that, The Ultimate Collection from 2002. And I listened to that non-stop, and it's
a very good collection. If you're a Who fan, if you want someone to get into Who, that's a good place to start.
Absolutely, because it's got like
almost all the hits.
Yeah, it's got a lot of the great stuff to start with, and even some deeper cuts like Pure and Easy and Joined Together. and then this, the package I got was actually this very copy.
Yeah, this was your gift to me.
Yeah.
I'll get into that in a minute.
Yeah, because
I got a story behind that.
I found a 3-disc version of it later, and I said, hey, Tom, you want this old 2-disc thing? I know you don't have it.
And I just gladly took it off of
Yeah,
him.
and the second disc on here is a live performance in Lyon, France, that has 5 tracks on it. We'll talk about that in a bit.
And then the second bonus CD is really just that concert, just the audio.
It has a few
more tracks.
6 or 7 tracks instead of the 5 here, so it's an interesting listen. Interesting is the operative word here.
See, my history with the album, the story that I was going to get to, is when you gave me this as a free, I was like, yeah, sure, free gift, why not? I hadn't really listened to it. I think I had maybe heard It's Not Enough, because I knew that was a favorite song of yours.
That was on like one of the more recent compilations.
The Who Hits 50, which was like their entire career thus
I think
far.
wasn't it on like the Greatest Hits one?
Yeah, it was. The one that was released when they played the Super Bowl.
Yeah, the silver one with their picture on the top edge.
Don't get me started on that Greatest Hits. I was not a fan of that one.
I mean, one disc.
It was one disc, but they put it on there, I guess, to bring it up to speed. Anyway, that's a different story for a different time.
Yeah.
But my story was at Christmas time, 2012. I worked at a hotel. No, I was not a bellboy, so don't say the joke. And then the next year, in 2013, when you got the new version, you gave this to me, and I was going to apply for the same job again. So I put this in my car because you had just given it to me to drive down there and get the job. And it may have been because I was driving and I wasn't paying attention, but I kind of just found the album forgetful, meaning in a way that like I listened to it, I was like, nice track, and then by 2 tracks over, I was like, what did that tracks ago sound like? And then by the time I had gotten home after, I didn't get the job again, but after I got back home, I kind of just put it back in this case and put it in my CD collection until recently we're like, hey, let's do the Endless Wire review. I was like, great, I'll get a chance to maybe, delve into it. So I listened to it again, like, just a few days ago, and I still had some trouble remembering some songs.
Sure.
Like, right after I had heard it. I literally listened to it, like, I don't know, 2 times in a row, yesterday and today. And what I did was, since I don't have that much history with this album like you do, what I did is I looked at it specifically from the point of like a journalist or an analysis. And I know that's what we try to do on the show, but we also try to do like our own personal take on it, what we think of it, how does it affect us. So I really tried to think, for this song, does X work, does Y work? And I'll get into all that, and I also, put in my own thoughts of this. But overall, what I came out of it after, taking in that listen and seeing what would work for the songs, I liked it a little more than I thought I was going to.
Mm-hmm.
And the overall consensus that I came out with this album is that it's fine. I feel this album is an easy target for a lot of Who fans.
I get the feeling, and you go to Wikipedia and it says this album was received generally positively. Was the phrase.
And on Wikipedia, you can see all the little like stars and
ratings. You can see like it's got 3-star, 4 stars,
and some give it a C.
Yeah,
I noticed that.
Yeah, I think one publication gave me 5 stars or something. I don't know. It was received well by critics and stuff, but I get the feeling that fans kind of dismissed this one, and even the Who dismissed this one.
Yeah, when we saw them on tour last year, they didn't even play anything from this. I mean, granted, it was called the Who Hits 50 tour.
Right, this is like billed as one of their big farewell sort of tours.
Yeah.
So
maybe not.
They wanted to stay away from this album that apparently wasn't received as well as they liked.
Right, and even on the Who Hits 50 compilation, they only put 1 track from this on there. It's not enough. Granted, it was the single, it was the hit.
Yeah.
I'm putting that in air quotes.
Yeah.
So I feel this album is an easy target. So I didn't want to come into it like we had planned to do with the Identity. We're going, let's destroy this thing.
Yeah.
We haven't done that show, and I don't think we ever will.
I don't know, man. I really want to.
I want to, but every time, have you noticed, every time we've tried to do it, something's come up.
Yeah.
So it's the universe's way of saying, don't touch it. Don't review this album.
It's also like, every time we talk about it with Becca, she just goes,
no. Yeah, no, please, just make it go away.
No.
So I feel for some Who fans, this album like could be that, where it's like, no, please, just make it go away.
I will defend this album until the day I die, because I have a very biased and special place for it in my heart.
And you know what? That's fine. Like, to me, it's like, why I love a lot of the early Beatles that people dismiss as bubblegum. I'm like, yeah, but I grew up listening to it, and you did too. Yeah. So I'm going to defend it. You know what? Something on this album I'm going to defend. You had a great thing before we started filming about, the some things describe this album. Some things are some things are gay, and some things are like, To me, that was like the overall 3 words that describe most of these songs.
Yeah, nah.
So, but anyway, let's, before we get into the track, let's get an overall feel for the album. Like I said, I feel like a lot of people are going to say the album is just, it's fine, it's there.
Mm-hmm.
I would say it's more fine than there. There were a lot of things I dug into. Some things I didn't. But overall, I got the feeling listening to it, like the last time I listened to it, that this is an album that obviously they made after Keith and John have passed. And I found there's quite a few references either to them, figures from their past, events in their past, and a couple of themes in certain songs where they kind of look at them now and realize, what they've done, where they are, how they feel,
Yeah.
What they have left, essentially. So I kind of feel like this album, if this is the last album they ever make, which God hope it's not, I feel like it was a nice sort of, what's the word? Not epitaph, but a good capture of where they were in 2006 and where they are even now. Because even now on their recent tour in 2015-16, they're saying, "Oh, we're so lucky to have done everything and be where we are." And this album, I kind of got that feeling there were some things where they're just like, "Man, we've been through so much crap, but man, we're still here."
Yeah.
What about you?
I do agree with you that it's very much an album of where Pete, especially Pete's mind was. He always writes in the present, I feel, and that also references a lot of the past. Just how he thinks and how he writes about things. I read a quote while researching this that he tends to write about past experiences through the lens of the present sort of way, and most of those happen to be negative experiences, which he called growth experiences. I guess trying to put a positive spin on it. And yeah, it's not what you'd expect from The Who, especially if you were kind of just getting into them and you're like, oh, I'll just listen to their most recent album to catch up to. This isn't exactly what The Who is about. Although there's a lot of good in it, it just is very atypical of a Who album. If you want a first one, I'd recommend finding Who's Next or Tommy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. And also something that struck me is that, by the time 2006 rolled along, Pete had done a lot of different styles of music.
Yes.
He had done musicals like The Iron Man. He had done plenty of rock operas, Tommy Who's Next, even Psychedelic.
Yeah.
He had experimented with the classical music, with electronic music. And so I feel like this album was almost like a culmination of everything that he had learned.
And also exploring new things.
Exploring new things. But I was going to say, but not letting it overshadow Roger and, keeping it, The Who, trying to make sure that this was something that Roger could sing.
Yeah.
Because Pete, if you look at Pete's Scoop collections, he's written more songs than you can shake a stick at.
Yeah.
And, there are a lot of songs that either you wonder if Roger turned down or he was just like, no, I'm going to keep this for myself. And this album, I have to imagine all of these songs were ones where he was like, this will be good for us.
Yeah.
So speaking of said songs, should we get into said songs?
Do it.
All right.
Do it.
So the album opens up with Baba O'Reilly. I'm sorry, it does not. It opens with Fragments, which sounds like Baba O'Reilly.
It sounds like Baba O'Reilly. It's intentional because it's sort of a way of calling back to their older work and saying, yeah, remember how we did this cool thing? We can still do that. And it also, it's interesting that Pete actually didn't write that section.
You're right, it was
Lawrence Ball using...
Yeah, the song is co-written with him.
Yeah, using the software. All of that is computer procedurally generated. By the Method program that Pete was really into as part of the Lifehouse project, where he would, people would go onto this Lifehouse Method website and type in various information about themselves, and the website would generate music for them. And this is one of those pieces.
Well, I have two things to say about that. First of all, the whole idea of calling back to something. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. For me, it didn't work for me because it essentially sounded like, hey, remember that thing we did in the past? Yeah, here's something that's just like it. And to me, I was kind of like, well, if I wanted to listen to Bob O'Reilly, I would have listened to Bob O'Reilly. And second of all, the synth sounds, and it may be a synth, it may be whatever. I'm just going to call it a synth.
Yeah.
It sounds too digital to me.
Yeah,
it sounds fake.
It sounds pretty MIDI.
It sounds very MIDI. It sounds like something that is not real. It sounds like something that was... as you said, it was built into a computer, and I get that. But when I think of Who, do I think of digital stuff?
Right.
So already that threw me. And, even when I said it sounds like Bob O'Reilly, it's not just the synth. You get the synth and you get the drums coming in, and then the power chords a la Bob O'Reilly. It's not Bob O'Reilly, but the first minute I'm thinking, what is this? So even the first time I listened to it, it threw me off guard, and I was just like, I don't know about this.
I understand where you're coming from with that, but when you look at it from my point of view as like a 12-year-old who's like, oh my God, they're doing a Bob O'Reilly thing again, and it's been so long, and it's just like, whoa. That was where I came into it.
Yeah, sure.
And also, I just really like this song in general, like especially like the melody and the lyrics, because the way the melody kind of goes up and down a lot, and the lyrics are just so fun to form in your mouth when you're singing them. I just so much good about it that I like listening to it a lot.
I think okay, I bashed the song. Now I do have some positives. I do like the guitar interplay with the synth at the beginning before the drums kick in. I did like that. I wrote here that this song makes me think of the album cover in a way.
Yeah.
Just with all the little pieces of something and all the notes you hear, and especially there's that whole bit where they repeat the line "snowflakes falling." I just got that feeling. It's a fine song, and it only grabs me because it really is the opener. If it were kind of placed anywhere else in the album, and we'll get to that, I would just kind of just be like, okay, it's done. Is this Pete trying to be philosophical? Is this philosophical, Pete? Because I kind of got... I mean, it's easy to look at this Fragments and think, what's the line? Are we breathing in, are we breathing out? And all these questions about life. And was this like his Dust in the Wind in a way?
This is one of the ones that didn't actually do a whole lot of looking at his... at the theme of the song. But maybe... I mean, it's also... This is one of those songs that, the Wire and Glass mini opera is on the album, but this is one of those that is referenced in Wire and Glass, so it kind of is part of it, but not. So I think it has more to do with the story.
Probably. And
which, to be fair, Pete weaves his philosophy into his stories. So, yes.
I was just trying to look at it just as the 3.5 minute song as track one, and I really didn't find that much to dig into, because as you said, it comes up again in Wire and Glass, so we'll get to that. We'll see how it plays in to the rest of the story. Other than that, I have really nothing else to say. I just said it sounds too much like Bob O'Reilly. It's fine, but should we move on?
Sure.
So, second track, Man in a Purple Dress. Really, really nice Pete and Roger duet. Pete on guitar, Roger singing on it. Kind of harkens to, if they, when they do their, acoustic songs like Tea and Theater, which we'll talk about. Really nice. This was the one that I was referring to when, I got the impression that they see where they are. This song, I kind of got the impression they feel like they're the only ones left. Not the only ones, but they were lucky enough to survive. And I wondered if the Man in the Purple Dress was either about two things. Was either about John, because he wore a lot of colorful outfits on stage.
Sure.
Or was it a song personifying death? Because you hear, what would I write down here? Say, you're invisible, you have your stick, and you protect in hell. Those are the ones that kind of jumped out at me. Where do you stand on this?
Well, I know the answer to your question.
Enlighten me, enlighten us.
Pete has said that this was one of the songs he wrote after watching The Passion of the Christ, the Mel Gibson movie from 2004, which is a fantastic movie, by the way. I absolutely love it. And this one was inspired by looking at the high priests and how they claim to represent God and pass judgment on their peers on his behalf, while also getting all dressed up and looking nice. Pete said he couldn't stand that idea. It was just absolutely appalling that someone would have to dress up to represent God. And he said, if I was going to represent God, I'd just do it. I don't have to look like a drag queen. Yeah. That's his quote. This is one of my favorite songs on the album. I really like how it has, as you said, the essential components of the Who at this point, which is just the two of them doing what they do. Roger singing so beautifully and powerfully. I really like how earthy his tone of voice is in this number, and how Pete. I could listen to Pete playing acoustic guitar actually all day, and this is you can tell why when you listen to this. Also, I think it's worth noting that when they played this song live on the tour immediately following, they would have a picture of and a painting by Francis Bacon called Head 6, which we will show you now.
But overall, I really, as I said, I dig this song a lot. After Fragments, this song was like the first real Who song for me, in a sense that the components were there, Pete playing and Roger singing very beautifully. I think it's very well done.
Yeah.
And this
also,
was oh, sorry, go ahead.
Something that I think you'll appreciate that I didn't know about this for a while is that this song was written kind of in the style of the Freewheelin' Bob Dylan album. Yeah.
Interesting.
You can kind of hear it in just sort of the melody structure and the arrangement of it with just the acoustic guitar.
Well, that's essentially that whole album. It's just guitar and voice.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I wouldn't know because I hate Bob Dylan.
I didn't expect you to. Didn't expect you to know it. All right, let's move on to the third track. Do we have anything else to add to Man in a Purple Dress?
Nah, it's just great.
It is great. And also, I didn't really look at their set list for the tour, but this was one of the only songs from this album that they would play live, right?
Yeah.
Because I know it was included on their Greatest Hits Live compilation that came out.
Yes.
But other than that, I really can't think. I mean, the next song we'll get to, they did perform, so let's get to it. This is a Mike Post theme. The first thing I wrote down here, I said, by this point, I was surprised how many of these songs I actually remembered. Because as I said, the times listening to it, I just thought it was just forgetful. It was nice. It didn't make me want to pull my headphones out, but I just had a hard time remembering. By this point, I was like, oh yeah, this is something that goes like da da da. I was like, fuck, I'm remembering things now. So I think Roger has some really great vocals on this. Actually, great vocals by all the people involved. It's really just Roger and Pete, right?
Yes.
And
I think Simon might be doing backing vocals. Simon Townsend, Pete's brother.
Okay. Well, whoever's singing it, they do really nice vocal work.
Yeah.
The backing vocals and Roger's vocals, I think they complement each other really well. Also, the dynamics of the song I have to praise. The chorus, it starts strong, and then the verses are a little bit quieter, and then, when the chorus comes back, it gets a little bit more powerful. And that's something that the Who really have been able to do, really to really hit it strong and then pull it back, and then to hit it really strong again. And to hear it in this song was just like, yeah, they still got it.
Yeah, definitely. So it's called Mike Post theme because
Who is Mike Post?
He is a composer who his shows he's done
TV
every procedural cop show ever. The theme song, including, I have them written here, Law and Order, The A-Team, Quantum Leap, Magnum P.I. His tracks are everywhere. And Pete is commenting on the ubiquity, I guess, of Mike Post's music in this song, and also how he kind of uses the songs, the themes, and their familiarity as a sort of comfort, and how he says this song is about taking life one day at a time, and how sometimes it's the small things like the familiarity of a TV show theme song.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out,
get you through the day.
I was trying to figure out what the song was about. In the end, I kind of knew. I was like, maybe it's just about life and just using the Mike Post theme as something that you experience every day. Because he just said his theme songs are everywhere.
Right, and he also mentions that sort of another theme in the song is that something that I guess that he's been dealing with is that as he gets older, as people get older, he feels like they can't express emotions as easily. And so he uses TV shows like this to communicate his emotions with other people more. And I thought, wow, that's kind of sad, but also comforting to know, because you can express a lot of emotion through the things you like. I mean, that's why we do this show, and so that people can get to know us through the things we like, and so we can share what we love. conveying emotions in this way.
Mm-hmm. I just had to laugh a little bit with all the references to the themes. So not the reference to the TV themes, but just the fact that he mentioned that he wrote the Mike Post theme, which of course is a lot of themes for different shows. And he said like what Law and Order, like so that was like what 90s or 80s, 90s. And just had to laugh at the fact that in the 80s. When Pete tells a story about Miami Vice and Eminence Front. I mean, I know he didn't write the Miami Vice theme, but just the TV theme idea comes back.
And he said that the song was partly inspired by the fact that they're using a lot of Who songs in TV now, especially CSI.
Yeah,
which is now the several Who songs are known as the CSI songs, like Bob O'Reilly, and of course Won't Get Fooled Again every time you put on your sunglasses.
Yeah, and Who Are You? Don't forget.
Yes, of course, absolutely.
So yeah, I just thought that was really funny.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's like I said, it's a really good song, and like I said, by this point, I was surprised that I actually was like remembering this one.
Yeah, this is actually one of the songs that I'm not a huge fan of on this album.
Just in general, not a big fan of this one?
Yeah, it just seems, it's good enough.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. A lot of these songs, when I said forgetful, I mean, it was good. It didn't make me want to cover my ears, but I just had a hard time remembering, but I was surprised to remember when this song came out. I was like, oh yeah, that's the one that goes like this.
It's one that I'll skip sometimes, partly because it's hard to sing along to, because it's Roger Daltrey singing.
Yeah, and like I said, he has the band have that great ability to really hit strong and pull it back.
Yeah.
And they do it well. All right, so let's move on to In the Ether. Now, you probably know my feeling on this one, because when you asked me the first time, how did I feel about this album, this was the one song that I pointed out, and I went, ugh. No, Roger's not singing this one, is it?
No, it's Pete.
Well, he doesn't sound that good on it. I'm sorry. He sounds like Tom Waits. He sounds like Bob Dylan now. And Pete Townsend should not sound like Bob Dylan. I'm sorry.
He was doing that on purpose.
I'm not. Okay, I will get into that.
Did you realize that? That's not how he actually sings? That he's putting on a bit of a character to sing this song?
I get it, and I get the song is dealing with pain. We'll get into that.
Yeah.
There's A for effort, C for results.
Okay.
But anyway, let's cleanse the palate and let's go to you on this one.
Well, I thought it was funny that you mentioned he sounds like Tom Waits, because in an interview, someone asked him if that's what he was going for, and he said, no, actually. A lot of people have told me that, but that's not true.
Maybe I can still say he sounds like him.
Sure. You're open to saying that. As for what it's about, this is another song that relates to Wire and Glass, but isn't technically part of it. It's about the loneliness of being spiritual, he says, in that he says the whole idea of being, I don't agree with him 100% on this. The whole idea of being spiritual is to be a part of the infinite, to be with God. He uses the word infinite. And the fact that you're a person, a human being living a life, kind of gets in the way of being with the infinite.
It's kind of like what George Harrison has had some very similar expressions and similar feelings and thoughts.
Right. And I also see it sort of an extension of the phrase loneliness of being spiritual in a way that Pete Townsend is one of the most overtly spiritual celebrities.
Right. He's very open about
especially back in the 70s and stuff, and how he was such a great disciple of Meher Baba, his avatar, who he believed to be God who walked on Earth.
You can see it in his music too.
Yeah, and that's inspired a lot of great songs. So, right on, Pete.
Yeah,
I will say, I didn't immediately fall in love with this song.
I still haven't,
because I thought that I didn't know that Pete was putting on a character for this. He said he's a 60-year-old man singing in the style of an 80-year-old man, because of, again, it's part of the story of Wire and Glass. And he's also singing it as a sort of Stephen Sondheim-esque musical theater piece, was what he said.
Yeah, I can hear that. It's interesting. And like I said, I don't doubt the fact that that's what he was going for.
Sure.
Maybe I'm just not a fan of how it turned out.
Right.
I do have some positives written down. What did I say here? I do like the sparse instrumentation. Really, is just his voice. I think some strings, or am I thinking of a different song?
No, it's a different one.
Okay,
this is just piano and guitar.
Well, okay, so that's what piano, guitar, and his voice, and sometimes his voice, by like the middle of the song, his voice is a little bit more emotional, and it does get better. I'm putting that in air quotes, and that part I liked. But when the song starts, it's one of those where it's like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
And you know, it's if I had to pick a least favorite, this is definitely the one that I'm going for.
Yeah, I don't blame you. It's
and I get that it's like a song about being in pain, being lonely, and I completely understand that. But when this song is over, I'm not going back to it to listen to it to remember it.
Sure, I don't blame you.
I'm so sorry, Pete. Please forgive me.
Well, funny you should mention.
You're totally watching this.
So when Pete played this for Roger, there was just kind of this week's pause. A week-long pause between playing it, and Pete had to call him and said, "So,
what do you think?
What'd you think?" And Roger's like, "Well, can you maybe just make it just guitar and I'll sing it?" And Pete was like, "Yeah."
So Roger wanted to sing it.
Roger, he would have been okay singing.
I think he would have been better.
He said he wasn't a big fan of how musical theatery it was, and he said if it had been arranged differently, like with just guitar, or Pete kind of snapped at him and said, well, maybe if I put 3 guitars on it and made it like fucking Won't Get Fooled Again, and it really hurt Pete. Roger wasn't a fan of the song.
Says the guy. Okay, I have to laugh. The guy who said it's too musical says the guy who made an album with him as a horse. The guy who made flowery solo songs.
Oh.
And the guy who did Wheels on the Bus, for God's sake.
Oh yeah, he did.
Let's not talk about that. So it's too music. Come on, Roger. I have to laugh. Anyway, so Roger, also please forgive me because I know you're watching this too.
Oh yeah, totally. No,
they're not.
I like this one. It's fun. It's good for me to sing, and
they're not subscribing to us.
No, are you kidding me? We're a joke. Why do we even? No.
Come on, back on the review.
What am I doing?
You like this one?
Yeah, I do. I do because, again, this is. I feel like it's another bias that I have from just listening to it for so long. Like, this is one of those ones that I learned the lyrics to it really fast.
Yeah.
For not even, I don't even like it terribly much. It's just I listened to this album a lot, and this song is toward the beginning, so I would hear it several times.
Well, it's essentially and that's fine. You grew up listening to it. You haven't developed what's really bad and what's all that stuff. Like, it's like, I grew up listening to the Monkees, so I liked it a lot. You came into it and you're kind of like, on some stuff. So,
like, friggin', what was the dog song?
No, We're Gonna Buy Me a Dog. See, I love it because I grew up listening to it because at that point I didn't have a filter. So, you know what? That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine that
age bias.
Exactly.
It happens.
Anything else to bash on or to praise in the ether with?
No, it's good.
It's not for me. All right, next track is Black Widow's Eyes. Again, another song that I was surprised I remembered by the time it actually got to it, but I really just remembered the chorus above anything else. I Fell in Love with You.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, the song I thought it was fine. When it ended, I didn't go, well, that was a waste of 3.5 minutes or whatever.
3:07.
Yeah. The instrumentation, I don't know if you thought this, the instrumentation to me reminded me of Country Who's Next. That's exactly what I wrote here. Especially 2 songs I pointed out, I Don't Even Know Myself, and the original Behind Blue Eyes that has the organ part in it. This song, to me, because it harkened back with those sounds, at least to me it did, because I was listening and I was like, you know what, that sounds like this part of I Don't Know Myself, or this sounds, because there's an organ in this song, I believe. Probably. Or something that sounds like an organ, which reminded me, that sounds like this part in the original Behind Blue Eyes. So it took me back to that when they were doing those, what I call country Who songs.
Yeah, there is something to be said about that. Like, a lot of this album is kind of folk and country based, and not obviously for the most part.
Right.
But you've got Man in a Purple Dress being on acoustic guitar.
Mm-hmm.
Again, Dillany. He was the folk master for a while, and that just seems to be. We mentioned the different themes that Pete has explored in music, and this happens to be his like country and folk phase, and that's fine.
Yeah. I mean, he did that with what was it? Free Ride on Psychedelic.
Yes.
I Want That Thing.
Yeah.
So it's nothing new to him. So it was kind of nice to like here's another one, so to speak.
Yeah, and as for Blackwood's Eyes, I really like this one. This is one of my favorites on the album, actually. Even though the subject matter is really dark, and I hate to bring it down, but it's got to be addressed. So this song is about Stockholm Syndrome, which is about falling in love with your kidnapper, specifically referencing a bombing in a school in Russia, in Beslan, Russia, where
it's getting really dark in here now.
where a female Islamic terrorist wearing a veil entered the school and suicide bombed it. Pete recalls reading an article about this bomber who the only thing he could see about her were her eyes, which he said were just beautiful, penetrating eyes before she hit her trigger, and so these suicide bombers are actually called Black Widows. So this is kind of written not from the point of view of that person, but from someone who
was there.
No, from someone who feels like his life is being ruined by someone with beautiful penetrating eyes, that sort of thing.
Which is something that I have to give Pete Townsend credit. This is a guy who writes millions of songs that he can just take inspiration from anywhere.
Yeah.
He sees that, he writes a song about it. He goes to what was it? He has a fight with the Sex Pistols, and he writes "Who Are You?"
Yeah.
This is a guy who can take inspiration from almost anything, and the fact that this is something that we would read or see in the news and go, "Oh God," and he'd be like, and he'd write a song about it. So
yeah, he was inspired by horror, and that's interesting.
Yeah, so even if I say the song is just good, which it is, I can still give it respect for how it was written, why it was written.
Yeah. And he said it's sort of also a love song about just, infatuation. It says in the song is a lot of times confused with love, even though it's just like I'm really physically attracted to this person, or we had a few really cool conversations, but it's not actually love. And he said that's kind of a Stockholm Syndrome in itself.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I have a soft spot for this song because this is like the only song on the original album here that Zach Starkey is playing on the drums.
Really?
Yeah. Other times it's, I think, Peter Huntington or Pete on a programmed drum set.
And was he already their drummer, or would he become their drummer?
He wasn't doing much on this album because he was on tour with Oasis at the time.
I'm trying to put the chronology in place.
Right. I think he officially became the Who's drummer in '97 with the Quadrophenia tour.
That sounds about right. And we got to see him when they played live last year. He's great drummer.
Yeah.
Dad taught him good.
Dad and Keith taught him good.
Of course, yeah. The only really note I have in the song is I really liked the harmonies on the across the room bit.
Yes, absolutely.
Is that Pete harmonizing with himself or with Simon? It's with himself. It's not Simon or.
I don't think so.
Well, Pete harmonizes with himself very beautifully. Yeah, let's look. We had the booklet here the whole time, and we never looked into it.
Let's look her up.
Well, yes, let's look. But in the meantime, I'll just keep talking. So I really like those harmonies. Other than that, I thought the song was really good, and like I said, I was surprised that I had remembered this one because I keep using the term forgetful. What does it say?
Simon isn't on this track.
So it's really just Pete harmonizing with himself.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he does a very good job.
Yeah.
So Pete, again, if you're watching, good job on that one too. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So let's move on to track 6 called 2,000 Years.
Yeah.
This was another surprise. The last time I say this. Oh, whoopsie daisy.
Yeah.
This is the last time I promise I'll say this. Was another one I was surprised. I was like, gosh dang it, I'm remembering a lot of these songs now. When it came out 2,000 Years, I was like, yeah, I totally remember this one. Is it obvious to say, but I could be totally right, that this is a song obviously looking back with questions, regrets that they had. Notably, what's the line I wrote down here? Looking to know that we were hated, you suffered my. I can't.
You suffer for my sake.
Suffer for my sake.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was that sort of them looking back, seeing how bad they treated people, whether it was John, Keith, their marriages, their, like whatever.
Yeah, I think it is. Again, I know the actual answer thing, but you can extrapolate a lot of themes from different songs, even not the ones that the author intended. That's the intentional fallacy. So yeah, this song is about looking back with regrets, and saying, "Can you please forgive me anyway for all the crap that I put you through?"
Right.
And this
I got that too.
This was another one inspired by the Passion, specifically how Judas was portrayed in the Passion. Have you seen the movie?
I have not. I've heard mixed things about it.
It's really good.
As I say mixed, I say mixed from religious people to people who are not religious.
Sure.
I'll probably get around to watching it one day. But anyway, what's Judas is portrayed in the film?
He seems to be struggling with his role in the film, which is, to betray Jesus. I say his role because Pete says that he was kind of going off the sort of heretical belief that Judas was ordered by Jesus to betray him. Which, as most, biblical scholars and theologians will say, was not true. Was just some kind of his heretical conspiracy theory.
It kind of depends on how you look at it, who you believe.
But I choose to interpret it more as Judas kind of wondering if he could ever do anything, if anyone could ever do anything to completely sever themselves from God's love, sort of bit. Like, it says, I know I haven't been perfect, not even a perfect snake. I haven't been, the worst possible person, like Judas, from the point of view of Judas. He followed Jesus for like 2 or 3 years. And then he is judged pretty much solely on the one action he did at the end of his life.
Yeah, I was wondering what that line was about, the one about the snake.
Right. Judas is still a bad dude and belongs in hell, I would say. But it is a question worth wondering. Is there ever anything that could totally cut, us off from God's love or from a love between people? Like, what is the point of no return? And it's wondering, after 2,000 years, what is the answer to this question? Also, it could be a reference to, hey, we finally made an album after what felt like 2,000 years.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably how it felt for a lot of fans.
I really like this one. I
liked it too.
I like how the duet goes with them playing harmonies on each other. I like how Pete is playing mandolin, and he's playing the cello on this.
Really?
And a couple of violins and viols as well. And I thought, wow, that's cool.
That is pretty cool, yeah.
Pete is such an awesome multi-instrumentalist. It's so awesome.
I really dig how the song was sparse, and putting that in air quotes. We really just had the 2 vocals, the mandolin and the strings. It could have been bigger, but I don't mean that like in a bad way. I mean, this song could have easily been over-embellished. It could have easily become like a rock anthem or a, what are they called, power ballad. Yeah. Where it's a cry for help. But I like how they kept it sparse. It was almost like a nice, quiet, simple plea for forgiveness or for our regrets. And I really like that. I listened to this song and I left thinking, I'm glad that they didn't go over the top, because then they would have essentially been screaming it, and I wouldn't have liked that. Right. So, next up is God Speaks of Marty Robbins. For those who don't know, Marty Robbins is a country singer, was. I don't think he's still alive.
No, he died in '82.
Okay. Question answered. He's a country artist, mostly known for songs like El Paso was like his biggest hit.
Yeah, that was the first country western song to win a Grammy.
And it still gets played today and still is loved today. Beautiful guitar playing by Pete, and singing as well. On this album, I noticed, I'm an acoustic guitar player, I noticed that Pete experiments with different tunings. This song, it sounds, I didn't look into the tablature, I probably should have, but it sounds like it was an open tuning. Or essentially, open tuning is essentially where you tune your string so that if you just strum without having to touch the fret, it makes one chord, and you just go from there. It sounds like Pete was experimenting with different tunings, and you can imagine, since this is 2006, it's been, what, 42 years since I Can't Explain. He's done more than just the simple 3-chord pop song.
Yeah.
And so I really like that he experimented with different tunings and got different sounds out of it.
Right. It's cool you mentioned that because Pete has been sitting on at least the guitar part for this for about 30 years when this album
Yeah, this was on one of his Scoop collections.
Yeah, he said he recorded it, I think, in probably right after Marty Robbins died in the early 80s. And you can find, like you said, you can find this on Scoop 3. It's just the guitar part, and then this is where he fills it out and puts it into a whole song.
Yeah, he just called it Marty Robbins at the time?
Yes.
Yeah. And then here he's fleshed it out into a full song.
Right, and this is actually another one that goes with Wire and Glass, but it's a little more loose. So the story behind it is from the point of view of God, who's sleeping before creation, before the Big Bang. And he just wakes up and says, I could go for some music. I could go for some Marty Robbins right now.
Marty Robbins, but he's God.
Well, yeah. So God wakes up and decides, there's a lot of war and hate and disgusting things that humans do, but man, it would be worth it if just go through all of this just to hear some really good music, especially from Marty Robbins. That guy is good.
Mm-hmm. I really like that idea.
Yeah.
It comes up later in a song that I'll talk about. The idea of, there's so much stuff going on, and really it all just comes down to like the music and just, there's so much crap going on. It's kind of like what we talked about in the Parley Sage Rosemary and Time review, Silent Night, over the newsreel of all the really bad stuff that was going on. Now there it was different, of course, but you still had the really beautiful song underneath it. And I didn't get that impression at all. I didn't do any research. I really just focused on the songs, listening to the album, and my thoughts. I thought the song was either about music in general, which it kind of is, or I thought it was about his son, Joseph, because he makes references just outright saying I watched my son. Yeah. So I was kind of like, huh, it was that there. So that's what I had no idea it was about something else entirely different, but that's why Pete writes songs and I don't. But as you can tell, I thought this was a really nice song. Again, Pete playing acoustic, I could listen to, for hours on end. It's beautiful, so and I really just like the way that he sings it too. He sings it almost, now that you told me the story, it sounds like someone waking up. So like very kind of soft-ish singing.
It's sort of either a lullaby or the song you listen to wake up.
I got some kind of both, actually.
Yeah.
At first it was lullaby, just listening to it, but now that you told me, I'm like thinking both.
Mm-hmm.
Waking up and going to sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful song.
I also just really like the idea of, it's probably not true, but I like the idea of God just saying, God being inspired by music to create.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking,
yeah. Well,
music, man.
It reminds me of something that, just really quickly on a side note, Roger said about the Lifehouse project. If you watch the classic album, The Making of Who's Next, he talks about Pete had written the Lifehouse script, which didn't make any sense to him, but he said it had some good bits, and the one part he remembered was that if we ever do find the meaning of life, it will be a musical note. And Roger was like, that's it. So, marrying both, life, religion, and music is something that is really cool to them, to us, to, a lot of people.
Yeah.
So that's that. And so let's move on to It's Not Enough, the single, the hit, so to speak, although I don't think it really did anything.
No, not really.
I see why it was the single.
I mean, this is the most upbeat song.
It's the most. I call it the most Who song.
Yeah.
It's one of the more rougher songs, which I think at that time and even today, the Who get that reputation of they're a hard band. They arena rock.
They got balls.
And so this song, I can see why it was the single. I can imagine being a Who fan in 2006, hearing it, be like, they have their balls back or something. After the electronic-y, it's hard. Let's not go there.
I ain't sure.
we will if we have to on
the
show. This song was almost, I kind of couldn't help but think, this song is co-written with Rachel Fuller, we should mention.
Yes. I know how the co-writing went down.
Okay, I'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
But I have to ask, I legitimately don't know. Were they just business partners? Were they in a relationship? I tried to figure it out, and I legitimately don't know. I see them working together a lot.
Yeah, they are in a relationship, Pete and Rachel.
Okay.
They write together. They live together, I believe. Pete has been a guest musician on most of her webcast called In the Attic, which I'm kicking myself for not having watched because most of the songs on Endless Wire were premiered on In the Attic.
And even some that didn't get released.
Oh, yeah.
There's some he demoed and some he just mentioned. It's like, oh, we recorded this song. Well, where is it? Can you play it for us? Or just don't mention it. Or, this is the 10th anniversary release of Deluxe Edition or something.
Yeah,
bonus tracks. But it's not gonna happen. The album's not that well known. But anyway, so how did the song come to be?
So, Rachel Fuller is also in a band, in her own band, and she wrote the music for It's Not Enough. And Pete saw it, heard it, and went, I want to take this. I want to make this into a Who song. Is that okay? She said, sure. So Pete wrote...
So she didn't even, record it herself?
Right, Pete wrote just the lyrics on this.
Really?
Yeah.
Good for Rachel.
Right?
It sounds like a Who track.
I didn't know this until, yesterday. And, oh, man.
I didn't know until just now, and I'm ready. I'm
wow.
It
it pulls you in with the acoustic guitar riff at the beginning.
Oh, so good.
It's just sort of that hypnotic, cyclical.
Bam.
And then the electric guitar comes in and you go, oh shit, it's going down.
Yeah, and I said this is the most one of the rougher Who songs on this album.
Yeah.
That's why I was like, I know why it was the single.
Yeah, this is actually my favorite song on the entire album.
It might just be my favorite. I don't. Yeah, it might just be.
Yeah.
I had to wonder just going off the It's Not Enough phrase, just said a bunch of times. I give you cash, I give you love. It almost reminded me in a way, this is almost like I can't get no satisfaction. You can't please anyone, and you can't please yourself, no matter how hard you try.
Right.
I mean, it's nothing new in terms of a song has already been written about it.
Sure.
But I the execution is really good. I really liked it.
Absolutely. This song was inspired by a scene from Jean-Luc Godard's Les Mépris, or Contempt, as it was called in America, which
I've not seen either.
Pete's name drops it in the song.
That's right. I was wondering about that.
And in a scene with Brigitte Bardot.
We also names drops.
Yes.
And it's, that too.
She's a hot box of rocks. Anyway. So
back to the song.
In the second scene of the movie, she asks her lover, I think it's her husband, maybe her partner, whatever.
Anyone who's seen the movie, write to us.
Let us know. In the second scene, she asks him, "Do you love my legs?" He says, "Yes, I adore your legs." "Do you love my arms?" "Yes, I adore your arms." "Do you love my breasts?" And they put the scene in just so they could get her naked. Anyway,
it's not a bad thing.
No. Yeah, it's not.
Moving on.
But and at the end of the scene, they both profess their love for each other, as people are wont to do. But Pete imagined, what if it had gone down differently? What if she had stood up and said, "You may love my body, but it's not enough." And so the whole song is sort of stems from that idea of, why do we partner with someone who's just not the one? What? Because a lot of people do that. The divorce rate is up so much because people are doing that.
Right.
That sort of thing.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason. I shouldn't. Yeah. It's so good, especially Roger's vocals on this. If you thought that, coming into this 24 years after their last album, or 25 after their last good one, that Roger wouldn't have the voice, he wouldn't have the same power behind his vocals, and you thought wrong, says this song.
I mean, it is just an overall note about the album. His vocals for the whole album range from good to great.
Yes.
I mean, Roger's such a good singer, you really can't say there's a bad... You could probably pick out one or two songs in their entire discography where But for the most part, he's such a good singer,
Mhm.
such a great singer, that he really can't give a bad performance.
Unless it was James Brown in the first album.
Which we talked about, or, you know, like I said, I could probably pick one from other albums.
Sure.
I can't think of one right now.
Sure.
But we're like, maybe not so
I think
much.
of the title track from It's Hard was not good for his voice.
Will that be our next show? We mentioned it so many times.
We keep talking
about it. That's okay.
Yeah.
I remember when we did my older podcast, Record Rant. I'll put a link down below, viewers. We did our favorite Who vocals, and you had mentioned this one on your list. And I noticed this was like the only one that you had that was like post '80s, Roger.
Yes.
So I mean, would you probably consider this like the best vocal that he's done since, I don't know, Face Dances maybe?
Probably.
Yeah, I'd probably go on say that was too. I mean, it's fantastic vocals and fantastic song. And Rachel Fuller, two thumbs up.
Yeah, man, God. Either this
Please
one...
write more Who songs.
Either this one or...
They need another album.
Either It's Not Enough or Mirador, probably the best vocals. And we'll talk about Mirador in a bit.
Just a bit. All right, so the last song before the Wire and Glass mini opera is You Stand By Me. It really is just Pete singing and playing guitar, which, as we said, we really can't go wrong with on this album.
Right.
I have it right here. It's a bit of a throwaway, but it's short and sweet. At least to me it is. It's only like, what is it, like a minute and a half.
Yeah.
And because it's sort of a throwaway, the fact that it's not that long, it makes me go, okay, that was good. It stayed its length.
Yeah, it's perfectly as long as it needs to be. This, Pete said, is his ode to Rachel Fuller, his partner, to Roger, to his family and friends, as a sort of just thank you for being there when I was a dick.
Yeah, and in typical Pete way, he just says it and just like, okay, let's move on. You know, he doesn't dwell on it too much.
Yeah.
The two lines I really liked, you are the strongest back I've ever known, you carried me home. I'm like, that's nice.
Yeah.
That's nice. And the other one was like, when I'm boozing, you stand by me. It's like, yeah, he's admitted he had problems.
Oh, yeah.
He did it, you know, with how much ever I booze, and this one is just like, he's kind of admitting, yeah, I did do it a lot, but you stood by me.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, that's nice. It's a really nice track.
Yeah, and what's cool about this is Roger found the recording of it and called Pete and said, why isn't this on the album? This is so good.
Oh, that's funny. Pete makes a thank you and doesn't release it.
Yeah, and then...
he keeps it private.
So I feel like this is Roger's redemption for saying, In the Ether's not that great, Pete. And then he says, but this one is good. We need to put this on the album, Pete.
It really did kind of feel like, I hate to say, kind of an afterthought, where it was kind of done to get an extra minute and a half on the album.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, it is kind of a throwaway, but I don't mind it. I think it's a nice track.
Yeah.
So before we get into the Wire and Glass opera, Garrett wanted to talk about the two songs that they recorded before this album. In 2004, was it? Pete and Roger go into the studio to record two songs for a greatest hits album that's coming out called Then and Now.
Mm-hmm.
They record two songs, Real Good Looking Boy and Old Red Wine. These were the first two songs recorded after John's death, I believe.
Yes.
So we're going to go through those since we really won't have a chance to talk about them anywhere else.
Yeah.
And we want to talk about them before we got into the Wire and Glass opera.
Right.
So, Real Good Looking Boy starts is the first of the two.
Mm-hmm.
I really like this. It's grown on me. I know that it's sort of implied that Roger's singing about Elvis.
Yeah.
In this tune.
It's more explicit than implied.
Okay, well, he doesn't call him out by name.
No, but I mean, he's referencing Can't Fall in Love.
Yeah, it even starts with the Can't Help Falling in Love melody.
Yeah, which is a great choice.
It's a great choice. And, you know, of course, whoever they is, wrote the song, got a songwriting credit. Mm-hmm. And I told you that for some reason I always before I knew it was Elvis, I always thought this was a song about Keith. But the reason I say that is because I always remember in the Amazing Journey doc when Roger talks about when they first met Keith for the first time. They saw, I am so sorry, where he saw them on stage and he had the big brown puppy dog eyes.
Yeah.
And Keith was so, he was so cuddly and he was so good looking. And
he was also the gingerbread man when they saw him.
So that's, his girlfriends have said he was a really, nice looking gentleman. So I always got that impression, after Keith died, this was sort of like their tribute to him. Like, yeah, that guy used to drum with us. He was a real good looking boy.
Right.
I mean, I know it's probably as a fact more about Elvis than Keith Moon, but I always thought it was about Keith.
Yeah, it's not.
I know it's not, but
I say Gingerbread Man, by the way, because
I don't even know what that is.
Well, the story about it was that when Keith auditioned for the Who, he had come off trying to look like a Beach Boy.
Right. Well, he was into the Beach Boys.
Right. His favorite music was surf music, and he tried to dye his hair blonde like the Beach Boys, and it came out ginger.
I didn't know that.
So then he bought a lot of clothes that were ginger color just to say, yeah, I meant to do that.
I'm the gingerbread man.
Yeah.
But you see where I'm coming from, where I thought it was
a little
about
bit.
Keith?
Yeah, I do. But having listened to them talk about it in interviews and read about what they've said, it seems more appropriate that it's an Elvis tribute.
It's an Elvis tune.
And that's totally okay. Because Elvis changed a lot of people's lives. Like, when all of those little 11-year-old musicians like John Lennon and Roger Daltrey and
Tom Petty even.
Yeah, when all of them sat down and saw Elvis on TV, they were like,
that's the future.
This is it.
This is it.
This is what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And
it was a game changer.
And then from that sort of, basically that one influence has given us so much great music.
Right. Sometimes I often argue that today Elvis is underappreciated in our generation, but without him, none of the music now, or in the last, 60 years, would have been totally different.
Yeah, you look at it in hindsight, and you can say that Elvis was kind of cheesy, or it sucks that he didn't write his own material or anything, but no.
Or a lot of his songs are kind of hokey, and it's easy to make fun of him, but you look back and it's like, that's where it all began.
Yeah, but a lot of times we're just looking at that in a strictly audio format.
Mm-hmm.
If you have to see what he was like on stage and that electric presence that he had, and also just the fact that he was an absolute sex magnet.
Oh yeah, all the girls wanted to be with him. All the guys wanted to be him.
And every little boy was like, I could get so much trim.
Yeah. Well, isn't that what why the Roger and Pete one said? We started out because we wanted to play music so we could get girls, or someone said that.
Yeah, I think Roger said in an interview, said, I won't make any apologies. We started a band to get rich and famous, which I expect would lead to money and women, but and yeah, Real Good Looking Boy is just such a beautiful little number that it's also not only about Elvis, that's a big part of it, but also it's sort of autobiographical for Pete, because he's realizing, he's the sort of narrator of the song. Of course, Roger sings it, interpreting his words, but Pete is the one realizing that, oh God, I am an ugly dude.
I had to laugh at the line. You probably know what it is. I have it written here.
Yeah.
Our family has some real strange genes. You have some with a couple extras thrown in. I was like, please tell me that's a dig about his nose. Please tell me.
Yeah.
That's why I had to laugh. When I read the lyrics, I was like, oh, shoot.
Yeah. And then later in the song, he finds true love and then realizes that he has another gift. Like, this may be a really good-looking boy, but I can find love where other people can't, and that's my gift. That's it. He said, God gave me a grace, and that was the grace, the gift that he received.
And it could be any of those, whether it's the gift, the love he got from music, from Mayor Baba, from Karen, from Rachel.
Yeah.
It could be interpreted so many different ways.
Mm-hmm.
It really is just a great track. Fun fact, if you pick up the Who Hits 50 comp, there's the radio edit of this, and the swear word that's in this song is not even in there. It's just silent. And Roger, you pointed this out once. Roger does not usually swear in Who songs. There are like a small handful of instances. Yeah. Who Are You? Drowned, was it? No, Dr. Jimmy.
Yeah.
But like really like
Young Man Blues,
but like that's really it.
Yeah.
So like when he swears, it's one of those things where like maybe it means something because it's so rare.
Yeah, it's sometimes there's only certain things you can get off with just one really well placed fuck.
Yeah.
I don't care if you have to bleep that.
I probably won't. I will put this is an explicit episode.
Sure.
So gather the kids.
And then another really cool thing about this song was that it inspired this album because at a performance in New York City in 2005, a year after they'd written this and recorded it, Pete and Roger just performed it together. Roger on acoustic, Pete on an electric, and I think John Caron was playing synths in the background.
So it was just the three of them?
Yeah, it was just mainly the two of them playing this very stripped down version of Real Good Looking Boy, and you can see, I love watching this performance because it's on YouTube. You can see just Pete looking over at Roger, and you can see just this love that's coming out of his face. And at that moment, he said in interviews, he was like, I could make another album with this guy. Especially, doing a lot of sort of folky songs, doing just acoustic stuff like this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we should do that.
Good
and
for
then
him.
This came out as, a new addition to the legacy of The Who.
For better, for worse, for some people. Some people. If a Who released an album today, even if we didn't love it, we'd still go out and buy it.
I would buy the shit out of that.
Me too. So, yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful song. I think these two were recorded just for the compilation. It wasn't really for fun or anything like that.
No, it was just for the compilation. But I mean, I think Pete was probably sitting on at least one of these for a while. And it's interesting that you say just for the compilation, but Real Good Looking Boy is also included as a sort of related track to Wire and Glass.
Yeah.
I don't know how exactly it fits into the story. I'll talk about it later.
Okay.
So Old Red Wine then.
Yeah, Old Red Wine is the second track they recorded. This was, as we mentioned, that they recorded these songs after John's death. I think this is the one that is talking about not just his death, but him.
Mm-hmm.
Because the part that I really got out of it was, what's the line right? I wrote it down here. Old Red Wine, well past its prime, may have to finish it after crossing the line. I was like, that's something there.
Yeah.
And on the other one that I really like, Gonna Have a Drink with You Some Other Time, was just, like, wow.
Yeah. This was definitely the more explicit, like, this song was about John and how awesome he was.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts with, just something that they would know about him, which isn't, a publicized thing, that John had a refined palate. Like,
he
things
wrote
in
Whiskey
life.
Man, for Pete's sake.
Sure, but he really, especially later in life, liked aged red wines.
Right.
And it's kind of an outlier of a song because The Who didn't make a tribute song to Keith Moon, which is, fine, but I get the feeling that they felt kind of guilty about not doing that, because one of the last things, well, not one of the last things, but one of the things that they may regret, I'm speculating, is that in 1985 when they performed at Live Aid, John said, hey, we should perform Under the Raging Moon, which was a Keith Moon tribute track
That Roger recorded
in 85. And they said, no, people want us to do Won't Get Fooled Again. And so they did that. Meanwhile, John goes off and says, I'm just going to go with my band and we'll do it live. And they did like a 12-minute version of Under the Raging Moon on the Left for Live album, which you should totally look into.
Well, arguably, John was the closest of the four to Keith.
Yeah, he was the one who had to room with Keith because
he
was the one with the most pay he could put up with his shit.
Yeah, they did all the shenanigans, the cherry bomb.
Yeah,
they did all the commercials for Who Sell Out together.
Right.
I mean, they really had a real strong connection.
Yeah,
and even
John was the glue of the Who. And that's something that is really underestimated, underrated, is that John was the common friend among them all. He was the friend of Pete and said, hey, you should meet this Roger guy. Here, you should meet this Pete guy. And then when Keith joined the band, they became such good friends, as you were saying, and he was the one who would keep them together the entire time. Even musically, he was the one who would hold down the beat and keep everything, kind of sane on stage.
Well, yeah, Keith would be flailing his arms, Roger would be swinging the mic, Pete would be windmilling, and John would be
John would be just the anchor.
Yeah,
of
I think
the
he even
performance.
pointed that out in some interview or whatever. He said, I'd be the one who wouldn't go crazy.
Yeah.
I couldn't just go crazy on the bass, but
Yeah.
he wouldn't go jump around. And even if there are no songs about Keith, there are ones that we can interpret. Like I mentioned, Real Good Looking Boy. I'd also mention to you, You Better You Bet was a song that, not about Keith, but I imagine Keith would have loved to have played on.
Oh, yeah.
And because Keith, loves pop music above anything else, and that is a straight up pop song.
Mhm.
And some of the lyrics in there, especially about the legs, I think Keith would have gotten a kick out of.
Yeah.
So there are songs that I can look at and just be like, yeah, I'm not in the mindset of Pete, but I could see that as sort of a Keith was in his mind when he wrote that,
Mhm.
or something like that.
Mhm.
And I just had to laugh at the old red wine image because an old red wine is such a sophisticated drink. And John was, I'm going to just say sophisticated on stage. He didn't move around.
Yeah.
And even in some of his humor wouldn't exactly ring true to us.
Well, he was such a dry, sardonic, sarcastic.
I'm
kind of
reminded
guy.
of the scene in The Kids Are Alright where he takes the gold records and just shoots them down with a machine
Yeah.
gun. Like we watched that, we kind of laughed because it's so absurd. But
Yeah.
Roger said, "No, that's John's humor. John
Yeah.
was like that."
Yeah.
So I had to laugh at the old red wine. It was like that's like a perfect image.
And then there was also a great joke to go with that video, and he said, so some interview asked him,
do you know what those
so
records-
do you know how much that was worth that you basically destroyed? And he said, they were Roger records.
Yeah, Roger solo records, and when Roger was solo, he was kind of like, "Good for him."
And Roger just kind of,
Yeah, good. Way to go, John. So, but Old Red Wine, the only note I have to say is that it has some Tom Petty guitar sounds when I was listening to it back earlier today. Because I really didn't have a lot to say about the song. It was just like, it was a really good track.
yeah.
And obviously, I doubt Pete was influenced by Tom Petty. But me listening to a lot of Tom Petty music, the way that Tom Petty and his guitarist, Mike Campbell, approach their guitar sounds are similar to this one.
Okay. Also, interesting you mentioned the guitar. I read that the riff that comes at the end where they kind of jam for a long bit actually comes from when The Who were performing in the 2000-2001 era where John was still with them. At the end of My Generation, they would sometimes bring that riff out and just jam on it, improvise on it, so they moved it into this song as well.
That's cool.
Yeah, and by the way, both of these songs have the bass played by Greg Lake of Emerson, Lake and Palmer and his own solo albums and stuff.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they got one of the most talented guys they could find to be the bass player because it's The Who.
Yeah.
John Entwistle is the greatest motherfucking bass player who ever lived. Fight me.
Yeah. I won't fight you, and neither will a lot of people. So he's not around, so got to get someone else.
Yeah.
You do a great job. Okay, so now we get to the Wire and Glass. Now, how do you want to approach this? Do you want to take it song by song as well, or
I want to take
what?
a quick break, actually.
All right, then we're gonna take a quick break, and then we'll come right back with the rest of Endless Wire. And 1, 2, 3, hit it! Hey everyone, thanks for listening to part 1 of our review of The Who's Endless Wire album, celebrating its 10-year anniversary. Let us know what you think of the album in the comments. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Do you think it's just okay? What are some of your favorite tracks? We'll have part 2 coming soon, so meanwhile, be sure to give this video a like and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.